here, and I encourage everyone to use the chat function to say hello and share a bit of your enthusiasm for today's session. So, today we'll be focusing on two main areas: hands on primary survey data collection and questionnaire preparation. Throughout this session, we will cover several key topics and work towards specific outcomes that will enhance your understanding and skills in these areas. Some of the topics we will be discussing on are the principles of primary survey data collection, steps to design a reliable and valid questionnaire, and best practices for data collection and management. So, this workshop is designed to be highly interactive. So, I encourage you all to actively participate and engage with the content and each other. And if you have any question during the presentation, please click on the virtual hand icon and I will address it as soon as possible. You can also navigate through any presentation materials provided on the platform. And please keep your microphones muted when you are not speaking to avoid background noise. Adhere to the time limits for discussions and activities to ensure everyone has a chance to participate. Now, that we have covered the introductory phase, let's smoothly transition into the main content of our session. So now I will introduce you to the resource person for this session. It is respected Dr. Naveed Ahmad Lone. Dr. Naveed Ahmad Lone is presently working as Assistant Professor of Economics in the Department of Higher Education, J&K, earlier taught at the Department of Economics, Islamic University of Science and Technology, Avantipura, Pulwama, and the Department of Baba Ghulam Shah Basha University, Rajouri. He has done his PhD from BBAU. It is a central university in Lucknow, and Masters in Economics from University of Kashmir. Besides this, he has also qualified NED GRF in Economics, conducted by UGC 3 times. His primary research interests include monetary economic issues, social development, and Islamic finance. He has published more than a dozen of research papers in national and international journals. He presented his research at many national and international conferences as well. He has delivered many extension and special lectures at many national and international events. He is also the editor of various journals of international repute. He has also completed one research project on financial inclusion funded by ICSSR. In addition to this, he has guided many PG scholars, and presently 2 PhD scholars are pursuing their research under his supervision. So now I would request Dr. Naveed Ahmad Lone to take over the session.
Thank you, Dr. Sanah, and I must congratulate especially my friend Dr. Firdos and his team for this wonderful workshop. And I hope this session will help us to understand some basic concepts that helps us to go through the basics of research and make our research activities more productive and society oriented. Before sharing my presentation with you, I would like to share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is visible now.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Just a moment. Okay. Basically, the area I am present in this presentation I am discussing is on primary survey and questionnaire preparation. Before proceeding at the outset, I would like to share with you that the yesterday's session, you may have very well gone through the concepts of importance of research, what basically the broader contours of research are, and what are the preconditions of research. But before going into this very presentation and the basic concepts regarding primary survey data collection and questionnaire preparation, I would like to share with you that this research is basically something different that we people are of the view, that the general view that what I have understood from my primary research or primary survey. My point here is basically when we go through the process of research, and I am of the opinion that there is something what we call learning versus earning. When you are in a field of research and either in your PhD program or post-PhD program, we must be of the view that we are learning and our secondary objective must be earning. And that is the only point where you can go through, and that is the only option where you can learn the research process in a better way. And second, more important point I would like to share with you, that is this research is a continuous process. And given this characteristic of continuity is a long journey. And this research, no one can say that I'm done with the research, because this is continuous process, dynamic, and you have to be active and you have to learn on a day in and day out basis. Number third that I would like to share with you before proceeding with my presentation, that is when we say research, we must be aware of, as a student of economics, what I am sharing with you, we must be aware that this research, we must have idea or we must have the understanding that this is not something that we are basically or primarily doing for ourselves. Why I'm saying this? Because the stage where we are either this is the research that is sponsored by any agency, government or any non-government agency, or it is the university research being PhD scholars, PG scholars, MPhil scholars. Majority of us are funded by some agencies like universities, higher education department, research organizations, whatever. But we must be aware what is the logic behind that very funding. We must be aware why we are doing this research. We must be aware that who is basically funding for this research. And as a students of research and as students of any of the subject, we must be aware of the pros and cons of that very funding. Why I am saying this? Because as a student of economics, we know very well, those who are not from the economics background, I would like to make them clear that we have a concept called the concept of utility, that is satisfaction. And whenever we consume anything, we get some level of satisfaction. We get some level of enjoyment. We get some level of happiness. Yeah, what we technically call utility. And if two persons, person A, that is someone who is in the category of upper class having high level of income, and person B who is in the category of lower class income, are those people who are below poverty line. The amount of 100 rupees is not the same for one who is in the below poverty line and who is in the upper, we can say in the upper class or upper poverty line. What I mean to say that the level of enjoyment or the value or the utility that is being derived by the person A who is in the upper category is not same for the person who is in the category B, that is below poverty line. But we must know that the majority of the funding comes from the sources called what we technically call the tax. And taxes are paid by the citizens. And those citizens, either they are poor or rich. If a person who is below poverty line, he is paying same amount of indirect tax, rather more indirect tax than the person who is in the category B, that means the upper class. But the person paying 100 rupees, let us say 100 rupees per day as indirect tax, and person B paying 100 rupees indirect tax, both the persons have not the same value. Why I am saying this? Because somebody who is working as labor is paying 100 rupee tax, and somebody who is working who is in the business class category or doing some white collar job, the 100 rupees for both the categories is not same. And the person who is working as a labor class or as a daily wager, whose income is meager, still he pays the same percentage of amount as tax. And that very tax is being used by we people as the fund for our research. But what we are doing for them, nothing. That is our primary responsibility, to have the understanding, to have the consciousness that those people who are funding for we people, and even they don't know that they are funding for we people, we must have the consciousness level, we must have the understanding, we must have the awareness that the people who are below poverty line are paying more than those people who are in the upper category, or who are working as white collar, or who are working as business class. And we must keep in mind that we have to do this research for those who are paying for we people, directly or indirectly. That is for the society who is paying for we people without knowing that they are paying for we people. And that must be the primary objective of the research. Because it is the research based on which the policies are being framed. And if we people conduct those surveys, if we people do this research in an objective manner, in a manner that is ethical, in a manner that the way it should be done, definitely time is not far away from us that we have an economic system, we must have a state where there must be justice, where there must be peace based on economic, social, political, whatever not factors. But for that stability, for that general equilibrium, for that peace, there must be appropriate, there must be relevant, there must be honest inputs based on research, and those inputs may be incorporated in policy making, so that those who are suffering, those who are away from the process of growth and development may be incorporated in that very process. And time is not far away when we have a society, when we have an economy that whole universe, that whole globe is searching for. Those were my introductory remarks regarding this methodology course, and especially those who are at the initial stage of the research. Now, proceeding with my presentation, that hands-on primary survey data collection and questionnaire preparation. Yesterday, you may have got the idea what basically research is and different types of research, because I've already gone through the list of speakers who spoke yesterday. And here I'm not going to discuss what basically research is, but my presentation is going to start from survey research. This is a type of research. Why I am starting from this, what we call the survey research, because both the components, yeah, both the subparts of my talk, either the primary survey or the questionnaire, is basically associated with survey research. And knowing the importance of this survey, we must have clear understanding, we must have clear methodology, we must have clear vision, we must have clear concepts regarding survey research, regarding primary survey, regarding questionnaire development, and accordingly, then only it is possible to have a research that is society oriented, that is productive, and that is helpful for the society, basically by which we are working. Now, coming from the basic concept of survey research, that is basically research that is primarily associated with the ground realities. That is basically associated with the collection of information by posing some questions and then only getting the information from those whom we are interested. And after that, we basically analyze, interpret, and come up with some conclusions. And we must be aware that survey can reach a large number of respondents, generate standardized quantifiable empirical data as well as some qualitative data. We will talk a bit later regarding this data and types of data. And whenever we are going for survey, whosoever among us is dealing with survey research, we must be aware about the pros and cons of survey research. Given the importance of this survey research, our primary data, our primary information, because primary data collection is crucial for gaining accurate and relevant insights. However, we know that we may have the another type of data that is secondary data. But secondary data, with secondary data, we have the issue. That is the issue that data is collected by A and is being used by B. A person, but were basically the objectives of person A or the agency A for collecting data. We don't know. He may have well established his or her objectives. In accordance with the questions he or she had posed and accordingly collected the data. But when we collect data, we pose the questions, we prepare the questions, we develop the question in accordance with the challenges and opportunities in line with the scope of the problem that is under consideration. So, in order to have clear understanding how to collect this primary data, we must know the area primary data. And collecting this primary data, we have different methods of collecting data, but as this is a long debate and this is a long discussion, this is a long topic that needs huge deliberation, although some steps have been taken by my friend Firdos. But here our focus is only on questionnaire surveys. We are not going to discuss interviews, observations, focus group discussions. These are different types or different methods through which we can collect the data. That is, I'm talking of primary data. But our concern here is questionnaire. So we will we will narrow down our presentation, our talk on these questionnaire surveys. Basically, when we say questionnaire survey, we develop a set of questions based on the objectives along with already existing literature, and then we go in the field. That process I will share with you. But with regard to observations, focus group discussions, and interviews, there is a different debate that we are not going to discuss here. And we keep our presentation on questionnaires. Survey questionnaires are basically a well-structured set of questions through which we gather information. Either they are basically the primary method through which we collect the information. The structure of questionnaire survey must be clear, concise, easy to understand, and questions must be phrased in a way that is not biased or leading. Because when we come up with survey questionnaires, we may have broadly two types of questions. And later on, we may have some more segregations, but broader categorization is open-ended and closed-ended. A bit ahead, we are going to make segregation pros and cons of each. And before going for the survey or before developing the questionnaire, before developing the questions, either the open-ended, closed-ended, multiple choice or rating scales, we must have clear understanding. We must have background of our problem. We must have clear understanding of our research problem. We must have clear objectives. Then only we can develop a better questionnaire through better questions that are going to be posed in the survey. Here I'm not going to discuss this. Yes. When it comes to data collection process, before going to this data collection process, we must go through proper planning, thorough planning, well-considered development, effective plotting, weighted modification, and deliberation, implementation, and execution. And that is basically the beauty of when we're going through this questionnaire system, when we go through the data collection through questionnaire, we have the beauty of this very system that we can go for pre-testing, plotting, then only we can finalize it. We will discuss them one by one, but when it comes to data, one must have clear understanding that broader categorization of this data is we may have quantitative or qualitative. And when it comes to quantitative data, that is not the issue. We can basically assign numerical values. They are quantifiable. They are in numbers 1, 2, 3. But when it is qualitative, that is we can say description or opinions. And when it is qualitative, converting the qualitative data in this quantitative or quantifying is a tedious job than quantitative. Then sometimes we go for mixed methods. That is, we collect the data in both qualitative as well as quantitative. But when we go with this, either the qualitative or quantitative data, the broader categorization of the data that we are facing, that statisticians have done is type of data that is nominal, which we can sometimes call as qualitative data, categorical data, and where we have nothing to worry regarding ordering, where there is no numerical value being assigned with this, only we can assign codes. But when it comes to ordinal data, in ordinal data, this is the data where numerical values are being assigned, where the numerical value means that 1 and 2, when we say 1 and when we say 2, this is increasing order and there is specific value for that. But when we assign same value in qualitative data, categorical data, there hardly matters. When we say gender, 1 for male, 2 for female, coding, either we write 2 first or 1 first, that hardly matters. But in case of ordinal data, what is important is ordering. And ordering comes from assigning the numerical values. And that is basically our prime characteristic of quantitative data. We quantify, and based on quantification, we assign the values. Then comes the scale data, that is a continuous data, where the numerical data can be measured on continuous scale. And when we segregate between nominal, ordinal, and scale data, nominal data, as I have mentioned here, that is like gender, where we simply nominate. Their ordering is not important. We simply nominate. This is red, this is blue. This is male, this is female. Either we say first male or female, that hardly matters. But when it comes to ordinal, like level of education, primary mean is low, but higher education, this high means that is he's in the upper class. Here, one categorization is important. Second, the ranking, what we call the value, is also important. Then comes the scale, that is continuous, because We have data that can take the continuous as well as we can make it ordinal as well. Suppose the income of respondents where you are going to survey. The income can be continuous, like we say 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. And same data we can convert it into what we call ordinal data. Suppose we make slabs 1,000 to 10,000. That is first. 10,000, 20,000. That is second. 20 to 30. That is third. That means the broader categorization that you have to keep in your mind is nominal and ordinal, but scale we can put it as continuous, or we can make it in these what we call the leveling categorization. We can make it ordinal as well. Yes, that is important. When we go for a data collection, especially primary data, we must have ethical considerations. As I in the outset, I mentioned that when it comes to ethical considerations, we must know before going to primary survey why we are conducting survey, for whom we are conducting survey, what is the purpose of the survey. These questions must be posed to themselves before going to primary survey. And then there comes, along with that, the ethical considerations. Like when collecting data, researchers must prioritize ethical considerations so that participants' well-being and data integrity must be maintained. Information protection, what we call information consent, protecting the privacy, ensuring the data accuracy, transparency, because nowadays we have these very challenges much more than our predecessors. The reason is now we are in a IT enabled globe, or we are in a system where information is a click away from you. When it comes to the surveys, those surveys which are especially involved with data privacy, with something that is like your personal information that has some potential risks in the market, in the society, then the ethical consideration is very much important. Why? Because you may go through what we call a session or two on sampling. We have one type of sampling that is what we call snowball sampling. That is being used for those like we have to collect information from those who are involved in illegal activities, sex workers and all that, where society, where these type of activities are not taken in positive sense, and those involved in those very types of drugs and all that, they have different image in the society. But as a researcher, this is a social problem, this is an economic problem. As a researcher, whenever you go for these type of surveys, then there comes the privacy issue, there comes the social challenges, there comes the information consent. Those points must be taken into consideration when you go for surveys, especially those surveys where there are social, economic, political, any other consequences that may have negative impact on the respondent. Maintaining the data integrity involving collecting accurate information and avoiding biases. This ethical consideration is primarily associated with the researcher. However, when it comes to respondents, that is there where we have no control. What we call that very variable is uncontrolled. Because where from we are collecting data, any society, what we call the sample space, the sample that is not in our control. Because that is the major challenge with the social science as compared to applied sciences, because our variables are uncontrolled. And when we are dealing with uncontrolled variables, then ethical considerations from both the sides, either from the researcher or from the respondent. Although what I am repeating is ethical considerations from respondent's point of view are not in our control. But what is in our control is ethical considerations in our control, we must prioritize them, and then only we can come up with the research, with the data that is society oriented, that is helpful for the society, that is based research that is based on ethical consideration. So my focus here is to have ethical consideration whenever you are going for primary research. Although this ethical consideration is very much important when we are going for surveys, when we are going for studies associated with secondary data, but the level of ethical consideration is not that much high as when we go for primary surveys. Now here comes the second part of this presentation, that is questionnaire preparation, because a well-designed questionnaire can provide valuable insights into variety of topics, variety of research problems, and questionnaires are a powerful tool for collecting data and understanding the perspectives. Yes, we must, what I have already mentioned in the outline, that defining the purpose and objectives of the survey and accordingly the question is very much important. And for that purpose, we must have clarity of goals. We must know what basically we want to achieve from the survey, why we are posing this question, what is the logic behind this question, where from this question has come. Either this question is my own observation, either this question has come from social problems, economic problems, political problems, or this question has come from already existing literature. We must have clear understanding and ensuring that your objectives and gathering the right information in line with your objectives and gathering exact information, appropriate information can only make your research relevant. Then target outcomes. Because as long as we don't know why we are conducting this research, developing a good questionnaire, preparing good questions, posing question in a better way can never help us overcome from the problems for which we are serving or for which we are basically searching for the solutions. And so having the understanding of target outcomes is very much important. Then scope of inquiry. Yes, because what topic or what area we are going to cover in this questionnaire, in the survey, the scope is very much important. Like when it was COVID in 2019, 2021, 22, the studies, either the post-COVID era or during the this COVID era, if it would have been done prior to COVID, because we were not aware of any such pandemic, that is what we call the COVID. Yes, scope of study only became when that pandemic came and the problems either economic or from this health, what we can, health insurance, economic, social problems that came in front of us, and then only the scope for the research that is associated with COVID became more relevant. So whenever we go for the study, we must have clear understanding that the scope of inquiry, scope of questions we are developing, scope of the questionnaire is very well clear. What questions need to be answered, achieve your objectives is very much important. Then identifying the target audiences. It is not like that we have developed the questionnaire, we have prepared the well-designed questions in order to find the solution for some specific problem, but we must have identified target audiences with whom that very research problem is associated. if for example, if we are going to study the consumption pattern of college going students, that very survey cannot be done with those who are out from colleges. So identifying the target audience is very much important based on demographic, physiographic, and behavioral pattern. As long as these prime determinants of target audiences are not very well to we people, we can't develop a good questionnaire. And if we are not in such a position that we can not develop a good questionnaire, we can never expect that the solution of the problem, that the research problem we are come up with, we can come up with a solution that is feasible and long lasting. Only point that you have to keep in your mind that you have to identify the target audiences based on demographic, physiographic, and their behavioral pattern. Then designing the questionnaire structure. Now, we cannot, we got the idea that we have to develop the questionnaire, taking some pointers, either this is we have to select the appropriate research problem, then we have to come up with research design and all that is already there, that you may have gone through yesterday or days ahead. But what is more important is the sequence, design, which question to pose when, how to pose questions, how to receive or how to get information from the respondents. There must be a proper mechanism, there must be a proper sequence, there must be a proper design of the questionnaire. Then only you can come up with the information that is relevant with your research problem. And for that, these 4 sections, these 4 points must be kept in mind. Introduction, you have to introduce properly to the respondents that why we are conducting this study, what is the purpose of this study, who we are, what is the logic behind, or even if possible, you can explain them a bit that what is basically the scope of this very study, why we are conducting, why we are asking from you people, why not, if you are asking from A, why not from B? And these very introductory remarks are very much important. Then subsection. Subsectioning, what I mean section is that you have to organize the questions, because when you are developing, when you are going to develop the questionnaire, in that very survey, you may have some questions related to your demographics, your economic factors, your social factors, or this study may be somehow related to environmental factors, political factors. So the sectioning and having the each question in the respective section is very much important. And instructions with regard to each section is very much important, so that the understanding or ensure that participants have understood each and every section and each and every question in a better way. And after getting information, after receiving your questionnaire, or what we call that very information that you were supposed to collect from individual A or the respondent, you must say them some kind words for their cooperation, for their what we say sharing their information. Those kind words must be at the end of your questionnaire. Then comes the types of questionnaires, have been broadly categorized into 3: mailed, group administered, and personal contact questionnaires. And this is basically the different ways through which we collect information. What is more important nowadays? One is mailed, you very well know, and second is personal contact questionnaire, where we go in the field and directly face to face we collect information. Although all these types of questionnaires have their lacunas, but if we go for mailed questionnaire or personal contact questionnaire, I'm again saying that the respondents from which we are collecting the information are uncontrolled variable for we people. So in that very context, we have to basically take a control on our ethical considerations. And then only the information that is either what we say in line with our objectives or not, because sometimes we get the information that is out of context, because like we have mailed questionnaire to person A, and what I was basically asking, he has misunderstood and submitted his information in other way. That is why in the outset, I have said that the clear understanding and clear explanation of the question is very much important. And then we go for crafting of questions. Again, when you go the crafting or developing of questions, clear and conscious, relevant, focused, then neutral. This very third point that I am raising is neutral and objective. Because whenever we are going for, speaking honestly, we are going for surveys, because I have personally worked on both the data, primary as well as secondary. My research was on secondary data, but after my research from last 4 or 5 years, I'm mainly working on primary data. And whenever we come up with research problem, we have the problem of subjectivity. What I want to say, suppose I want to study the impact of one of my recently concluded project, that is evaluation of Jan Dhan Yojana. Let us say, if I am subjective and I want to prove that the Jan Dhan Yojana is a successful flagship program of the government. As a researcher, having the subjectivity, we people, we pose questions and we try to motivate the respondents in that very way, so that our subjectivity, our personal interest, our what we call the inclination towards the scheme is being fulfilled. But ethically, we must know that we must be objective. As long as we are not objective, we can never get the real information. We can never get the ground realities. We can never come up with the facts and figures that we were supposed to have. So avoiding biases and suggestive wording whenever it comes to primary data and developing or crafting up question, the biasness, suggestive wording, and like this must be avoided. And having the neutral approach or subjective approach is very important, or precondition for crafting an effective questionnaire and effective question. Appropriate questions, that is very important, that already we have mentioned in the outset. Then comes the types of questions, open-ended and closed-ended. Both have their limitations. I will let you know. Both have their pros and cons. We'll let you know. But as far as open-ended question is concerned, we don't put any option. Respondents are free to answer whatever they want to say regarding that very question that we are going to pose. There is what we call freedom. But when it comes to close-ended question, there is specific amount of information. Within that information, the respondent is supposed to respond. We have limited number of options, and within those options, he or she is supposed to respond. And framing the question, we must know that is this question that we can be asked exactly the same way it is written. That is what we have already said in the outset, that the writing or posing a question, that is very much important. What we want to get, the information that we want from the respondent must be same way communicated to the respondent. That is, the writing pattern of the question is very much important. We have to take into account this whenever we frame the question. Or the message, or what we want to say, is the audience or the respondent in such a position that he has exactly understood the same way as I am asking from him or her. One more important point whenever we frame the questions is the question that people can answer. Then only, if the respondents are not in such a position that they can answer the question, posing that either the better question or good or bad question is of no purpose. As long as we have done proper survey, as long as we are very well acquainted with the respondents, as long as we are not very well this ground realities, we must have the information regarding the ground realities whenever we pose the question so that the respondent can answer it in a better way. And more importantly, this is related to somehow ethical consideration, somehow ethical consideration of the respondents. Because last point that I am basically talking, is this a question that people will be willing to answer given the data collection procedure? Are people's, if you are what I'm saying basically, if some questions that are basically associated with somebody's private information, and are we supposing questions in such a way that they are going to openly discuss or openly share their information with you people? Suppose one example, I am asking from somebody that what is your monthly income? Is this the better way of asking the question? And are people really so open that they are going to disclose this very information in front of you that my income is this much and my income is not this much? So if that is the situation, we must have devised question in such a way, that is what we call the indirect questions, so that the information you are willing, you are searching for, you can basically collect the same information by indirect ways. Because sometimes there is some privacy issue, sometimes there is some economic issue, political issue, what and what not. I'm not going to discuss those in detail, but my point here is, if you are very well acquainted with the problem, you are very well aware about the grammar realities, you are very well about the research problem, you must pose the questions in such a way that respondents can answer in a better way. Either that may be directly or indirectly. Yes, precautions, as Noman has rightly mentioned some of the precautions while writing the question, survey questions. Use of some abbreviations and all that, ambiguity, there must not be some confusion. Whenever you construct a question, that must be very well constructed. Use of emotional language, that must be avoided. Leading or loading questions must be avoided. That is a bit technical term. Majority of you must be knowing, but I would like to say a bit. When we say leading or loading questions, these are the question is like, I will say in one example that how we say this leading question. If I am attending some of the events and somebody is asking from me, how much did you enjoy from this event? And second is, I'm involved with some illegal activity. Yeah, I'm involved in some activity and somebody is asking me, like I'm smoking, and somebody is asking me, how finally you come up with, from this smoking? That means that is associated with my personal event. And second question is that is associated with somebody's event. And he is basically trying to get information, like you people are attending this seminar or what we call the workshop, and in the evening you may get some link regarding your feedback. That is basically leading question. But if I am doing something and somebody is asking to me, how you are feeling of doing this, that is loading question. You have to keep in your mind. And these types of questions must be avoided, because sometimes these, especially loading questions, if somebody is asking from we people, they are generally associated with our personal beliefs, personal interests. We are not willing to expose them, and better. to ask indirect questions in those very cases. And more importantly, the capability of the respondent. So the level of question must be in such a way that the capability of the respondent must be kept in mind. What type of respondents we have? Do we have the literate or illiterate? We have those who are in government sector or private sector. We must know the mindset of those very respondents. And accordingly, questions must be developed. Questions regarding hypothetical situations. Hypothetical situations like if there is, like India is nowadays working on 5 trillion economy. And if somebody is asking we people that if India is going to collapse, Indian economy is going to collapse, that is a hypothetical question. And what would happen? If you don't have, like, if somebody is asking me, what is your salary? And then second question, if you don't have any income, what you are going to do? How you are going to survive? So these type of hypothetical questions, having no ground realities, having no factual positions, must be avoided. Then after developing the question, what the beauty of this very questionnaire system is, we go for pilot testing and revisions. That pilot testing and revision basically improve the authenticity of your questionnaire. You basically develop a framework of questionnaire. You go in the field with some small group of individuals or sample, and then come up with a refine and improvement on that very questionnaire. And finally, after getting the feedback from the field, and then finally, after getting feedback, you refine and improve, so that after this refinement and improvement, you go in the field and collect the information that you are interested in. Then distribution and collecting responses. As already, this may be mail that is nowadays very well used, online platforms like SurveyMonkey or Google Forms, especially after COVID, this online platform becomes very much viral, and majority of these researchers are doing with this. But you must keep in mind that the problem with this is that we may sometimes have a ghost respondents. We may sometimes have the respondents, they really want to say something and they understood it in another way, but the interest, the information, the accuracy level of paper-based one-to-one communication is something that is above all, where you get some extra information that you feel. Because what I'm saying that we have uncontrolled variable, and out of uncontrolled variable, we have only one thing that we can get from that very uncontrolled variable is the feelings, the way of understanding, or in case of this online and offline, when we go for offline surveys, what is beauty of that very offline survey is if we have a question and the respondent is not in such a position that he is going to expose or he is going to answer that very question, as I earlier in previous slide mentioned, that we can revise this question in a way that we can ask the same information in indirect way. But that is not possible when we have sent this, we are doing the survey through either the Google form or Monkey survey or any other platform through which we collect it, or even emailers. So that is not possible when we don't have one-to-one communication. Guiding principles. With regard to guiding principles followed in the questionnaire, that is basically the culmination of this. It should be self-explanatory, as simple as possible. Question should be restricted to close-ended, as open-ended questions could receive vague and incomplete information and responses. Less number of questions in the questionnaire helps receiving high response rate, because those who are at the receiving end, because neither if we are not very well accounted and the information we are very receiving from the people, basically in the short run, they don't have to get anything from this. Although the information we are collecting from the people, from the respondents, that is for them in the long run. But let them know, let them understand, let them define how this is relevant with you is not so easy. And so the lesser the number of questions, so that it can fulfill your objective. The better it is for the researcher, for the data collector, for we people to get more information, so that this may not be time consuming from them, also so that they may get bored and all that. Attractive layout is very much important. Proper instruction should be provided to the respondents before filling the questionnaire. That is very important. Then only they can fill the appropriate information. Steps to be followed in questionnaire construction and writing the report. First, as already mentioned, determining the scope of the questionnaire. Is this problem relevant, not relevant? How much relevant? How long this is going to serve the society? What are outcomes of this survey or questionnaire? You must be very well. Deciding the type of question. Is it open-ended, closed-ended? Because sometimes it is not possible to pose closed-ended question and put 2 or 3 options or 4 options to get exact information. In that special case, we must go for open-ended questions. Prepare the draft questionnaire, then pre-test. After pre-testing, revise the questionnaire and distribute the questionnaire among the actual sample. And if it is online, like email or like any other platform, then we people generally, even when we get these type of surveys, online surveys, we take it for granted, and sending the continuous reminders is one more setup that we must take into account, because it is we people who are interested in the research. It is we people who are concerned regarding the society. It is we people who are concerned with regard to data. So collecting the information, reminding them again and again is one more important setup that must be taken into account. Receiving the responses, then we will start getting responses, analyzing and writing the report. Advantages of questionnaire method: easier and quicker to collect the data. Information received is quantifiable. We can quantify it. Cost effective. Response from large population. Respondents get chance to prepare and revise answers. That is what I am saying, that when we go for questionnaire development, we have a chance. If we are not in such a position that we can answer this way, we can answer another way. Revise, reframe. Researchers also get a chance to pre-test pilot study. Responses are easy to analyze and tabulate, because when you have especially closed-ended questionnaire, then it becomes very much easy to analyze and tabulate. Although some limitations are there, difficult to receive adequate response rate, because people do not return the questionnaire on time, as is the case with we people. That is the limitation. Reliability of data can be questioned, because we are asking from the people, we are asking from the respondents. Either they are saying right or wrong, we can't ascertain that. Only thing what we can do, we can try as much as possible. We can take them in confidence, so that they may feel comfortable in disclosing that their information. Truthful answers can't be ascertained. That is, the authenticity can't be ascertained. Incomplete answers also cause problem during the analysis stage. When answers are sometimes incomplete, that again creates problem, because our objective is not being fulfilled. Technical words, sometimes professional terminologies, like we have some subjects like economics, management, commerce, and many more subjects where we have some technical language. And having the understanding of those very technical languages to the common man is very much problematic. And if they are not in such a position that they can understand the basic terminology, then we can't expect the exact information, the information we are interested. So having this one more limitation of questionnaire method. A verification of accuracy of responses received from the questionnaire might be difficult, because accuracy, we are not in such a position that we can verify the accuracy of those who are basically providing the information. And finally, as Paul Burton has rightly said, properly designed and analyzed questionnaires can be a rich and reliable source of research data, both qualitative as well as quantitative. Hence, proper attention has to be paid to carry out the questionnaire survey. If not done properly, it may lead misleading results. Thank you. That is from my side. Anybody have a question? You can pose your questions, and I will try to do justice with your questions.
So we welcome, participants to ask questions. They can, either if they are in a position to, ask directly the question, they can unmute themselves, open the video and ask the question. They can introduce first to themselves, that where from they are, and make the question very specific. If they are not in a position to open the mic, they can, put their question in the chat box. So it is your opportunity to share your insights, share your confusions if you are having any confusion about survey data, how to proceed. And you can ask directly questions related to your research which you are facing. So before we will receive questions, I want to have a small announcement that we are going to share with you the feedback link after today's session, both first day and second day. Rest, Sanah will take questions and take the charge of the session. So I am having one question, before that we encourage the participant to ask a question. So I want to ask one question.
Yes, please.
That how difficult it is, for example, we are having published reports or we are having official data from different agencies like IMF, World Bank, RBI, or other development agencies of the country. But altogether, we are at ground level when we are collecting the data, we are getting the results which are totally against the published report. So at that time, how to justify our primary survey results or findings? So what are your inputs on this? Thank you. Dr. Naveed has left the meeting. You can pin him. Yes, you can pin him.
Dr. Firdaus, please, you repeat your question because all disconnected.
Okay. So my question was that as by secondary reports, secondary data, findings at national level, which has been published or published by Government of India agencies like RBI, NSSO, at the world level, World Bank, IMF, Asian Development Bank. So the results are totally different while we are trying to compare them with the primary data result. So at that time, it becomes a confusion and conflict between a primary results with secondary. So researchers, either they have to manipulate the data or either they are unable to publish with a good journal, as is the case of mine also. So at that time, how the researcher should, what approach he should follow? Okay, this was my big question.
Okay, fine. Basically, the issue of data authenticity is problem with underdeveloped countries, and ours is not the special case. One. Number two, as I basically make emphasize on what we call, we must have our consciousness. We must have what we basically have the problem with this data collection technique, that we don't have sophisticated data collection techniques or trainings. When some organization like NSSO is collecting data, are those who are in the field very well versed with data collection technique? And what we have seen that because we don't have those very well data collection techniques, we are not able to communicate with the respondents. Number two, are our sampling techniques appropriate? Number three, when it comes to our primary data, that contradicts with the secondary data. That is major issue because there is data collection process that is not appropriate either in case of data collecting agencies or in case of individuals. Now, this is what we say the paradoxical case. Either we go for this when you have honestly collected the data, you have the problem that you are not in such a position that you can publish it in a good journal. But what is my personal experience is, if we are conducting research on, let us say, Jan Dhan Yojana, as I had already conducted the survey, the ground realities are totally different what the government is arguing. Now, as a researcher, whatever, because the government, when conducting the research and collecting the data, they may have the subjectivity that I was mentioning. And as a researcher, we must be objective. And if 10 people, 20 people are conducting the research on Jan Dhan Yojana, and out of 20, 15 people have the contradiction with the government data, what the government is arguing. That means government must introspect, the agencies must introspect that there is some lacuna in our data collection process. And as long as we don't repeat it, as long as we don't focus on it, as long as we don't keep it on continuous process, this contradiction can never be overcome. Only point is, as individual researchers, we have to focus on what we call the research ethics. And number second, we must have to improve our data collection techniques. And what the government agencies are doing, they have to focus on that. And when we make continuous efforts to motivate the government to work on a specific area, like I personally had done, and same question was asked by the panel, that what you are arguing is totally against what government is arguing. Then the same answer I posed to them, what I have collected the information that I have collected from the ground, but I don't know where the government has come up with this information and who have collected this very information. And problem is, we don't have appropriate data collection techniques. We don't have proper research ethics, either at individual level or at institutional level. So our basic focus must be on research ethics, and then only the objectives that we are going to fulfill must be objective, not the subjective. And that is one more problem that personally I am going through, that I have understood that, especially in economics. This may be the case in other subjects as well. Because when we come with any of the economic problem, we must be purely economic. But what is from last more than 1 decade, what is happening is we have what we call politico-macroeconomics. Economic decisions, economic policies are motivated by political decisions. And when your economic policies or economic schemes are any of the decision is motivated by political decision, political part, this agenda, then the policy that is but natural must be subjective. The data collection that must be subjective. The data collection process that must be subjective. As long as we come up with out of that very politico macro, the combination of different interferences, let each and everyone decide at their individual levels. If we have sociological study, there is no need to intervene there. Although we have now multidimensional perspective, that is, somebody is going to ask that now we are having multidimensional interdisciplinary. That is something different what I am saying. We must have to maintain research ethics and proper data collection techniques, and have to continue work on that very process, and then only we can come out of from this very paradox that is in between individual level and at institutional level.
Thank you so much, Dr. Naveed, for such an in-depth answer to Dr. Firdau's query. So there are a few queries from our participants as well. So Mr. Asaf Khan has a query that, how can we ensure complete picture of our research if we keep the questions limited? So
This is a question from Asif.
Asif
How
Khan.
can we ensure? I got the question. How can we ensure complete picture of your research? Yes, Asif, what I want to say basically, I never say that you put limited questions. I say a minimum less number of questions. Suppose there is no need to have as much as number of questions. Yeah, those very questions that are irrelevant. We can develop the question in such a way that we can precisely get maximum information. Like in economics, we can say optimization of questionnaire. We have to optimize basically the questionnaire so that we can get maximum information from minimum number of questions. That was basically my point. It is not like that your objective is and you have to put the minimum number, less number of questions. I'm not saying that. I'm basically, you have to optimize your questionnaire. You have to put less number of questions, but in an optimum manner so that maximum information can be get.
Thank you, sir. I hope he got his answer. And there is next query from Mr. Satyam Kesarwani. He's saying that if I take data from budget, actual data, such as expenditure data on social sector, then base year is necessary for this data or not?
If
Satyam
I
Kesarwani.
okay, this is with regard to secondary data. Yes, thank you for giving this. Sir, I have data from, take from data from budget, such as expenditure data. As the question is posing, this question is with regard to secondary data. I must share here that if your data is time series data, and more important, when your data is time series data, then you have to focus on the base year, especially when you are in data in index numbers. If your data is not time series, you are dealing with primary data, then there is nothing like base year or anything. Because in case of time series data, we have to focus on, we are basically comparing. Like you are mentioning as an example, expenditure data. You have to compare your data with the previous. And for that,
Sorry for the disruption, sir.
Dr. Naveed, you're on mute.
So can you unmute Dr. Naveed?
Sure. We have one more question. Sir, can you explain what is it is meant by effective piloting and weighted modification? This is Faiza Shahid. Faiza, basically, when we go for this pilot study, what I mentioned there that we come up with feedback. And after feedback, we get the real picture of the ground realities. Then only when we say effective piloting, means when we are going to collect the data through this pilot testing, we actually get the understanding or the signal from the ground that which question is how much important, how much priority must be on which section, or what type of questions must be subtracted, deleted from the questionnaire that we have drafted, or what type of questions must be added in a specific section. The sections I already mentioned, what type of questions must be having least weightage, that there is no need of those very questions, and accordingly we assign those very, we add or delete the questions. What I mean to say, the pilot study, effective pilot study means the actual pilot study gives us the idea regarding the ground realities, and based on ground realities, we basically add or delete the questions that are relevant with our study. Thank you, sir. How can we collect a real
So
data?
we have, okay.
So I am having
So-
here request, Sanah, try to, take questions from the participants who are going to, ask directly. There are some participants who want to speak directly face to face.
Sure.
Somebody, you can ask them, raise the hand and take their question. So
Sure.
you can continue with the, chat questions till now. But in between, if there is somebody, interested
you
to
can
ask a
ask
direct
it,
question,
Oh, done.
you can raise the hand and she will, allow you.
Dr. Firdaus, can I, here is Muhammad Ibrahim.
ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਫੇਸ ਸੀ ਹੋਰ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਸੀ ਦੇਣਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਕੇਸ ਸੀਗਾ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਵਾਲਾ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਸੀ ਦੇਣੀ
So
Dr.
someone
Sanah,
Simrat Kaur doing bad things.
no. Dr. Firdaus, am I
Yes, yes,
audible?
please. Yes, you are audible.
Someone, Mahmudullah Ibrahimi asking, how can we collect the real data through online survey, despite of having so many limitations, which you explained in the last slide? That is what I am telling you, that the best way of collecting the data is what we call the offline data, face-to-face communication, one-to-one communication. Because problem, already I told that you may have sometimes ghost respondents. You may have sometimes that we are not interested and we put the option as what we say, our interest is not there, we simply put the option as whatever it is. So that may create problem. My point here was that I already told that best way is to go in the field. You may have sometimes some questions that are not, you are not getting the exact information. Then you can pose that very question. Yeah, you can smell from that very respondent. You can pose that very question indirect way. You can get information in another way. You have that very option only when you go through. But we have the options with limitations like online surveys and Google form वगैरह जो भी you have options, but the best one is offline one-to-one where you can explore different options to get maximum information. I already told that what you are saying.
Okay, Dr. Naveed, there is one more query by Divya Tiwari, and she wants to understand leading and loading questions once again.
Okay, sure. Basically, when it comes to leading questions is as Firdaus were sharing with you that I'm going to share feedback form. That is with regard to his event, he want to get the information or the level of satisfaction you got from this very training program. That is basically the leading question. And with regard to loading question, that is associated with my personal, what we say, with my personal events, with my personal activities, with my personal habits. And those very issues, what they have the problem that sometimes I'm not going to disclose what I have done. Let us say somebody is going to ask me, please tell me what type of methodology you have adopted when you have qualified UGC NET. If I am somehow subject to, I'm not going to disclose that very information. Same as the case, if somebody is going to ask me how you have came out from smoking, and maybe that is my personal issue, and that is loading question associated with specific event associated with you, somebody A, B. But when some organization, some event manager is asking with their interest, that is basically the leading question. That is the difference between the two. So my topic is AI auditing comparative study of 4B government from India. Here how I collect. Yes, Dimple Julia, your survey is with regarding, yeah, your research problem is with regard doing AI, artificial intelligence. I've already told you that we have different methods of collecting the data, and each and every method has its limitations. What I want to say that the online method of collecting data is not totally full of limitations. You have offline the best, then you come according as per ranks. And when you have no option of collecting the data in offline mode, how you can collect offline data in offline? Then you have to find the alternative. And your second best is you have to go for online. As we have the theory of second best, you have to simply apply here the theory of second best and you collect data online mode. Because we have what we call the level of significance. You have to go for, you can go for up to 10% of level of significance given your nature of the study, because you don't have the option to go for offline survey. That is why we have explained the types of surveys either this collecting data that is online, through emails, then offline. You have some respondents who would answer.
Jaskaran Singh has
Naveed,
raised
Dr.
his hand.
Naveed,
Jaskaran
yes.
Singh actually has raised
Dr.
his hand.
Jaskaran is
Yes, sir.
something asking.
Yes. First of all, I would like to say thank you, Professor Naveed, for this very interesting and insightful and in a simplest way, you have explained this very cumbersome research issue. And the thing that I would like to ask that as you are suggesting that the best way one will have to go to the field for doing primary research. But in these days, there are sometimes some kind of hurdles for the researchers to reach their targeted population, and they have to go through the online. Would you like to suggest some key points while doing this kind of exercise when we have to do the survey through online? Like now we have various tools like the simplest is that a Google form, and then the next is Survey Monkeys, and I think there are some other kinds of tools also. That sometime researchers find a difficulty to how they will have to maintain the size of sample. Like in online, there is a possibility that you can have a large number of sample also, but it depends on the targeted population as we know. But even then, like while framing the questionnaire and to use the appropriate tools, like somebody will have to go through Google Forms or Survey Monkeys. If you would like to intervene or would like to suggest in this respect, and please, thank you.
Thank you, Jaskaran. Basically, the issue with regard to this research is at the outset, with regard to your question, I must say that good things never come from comfort zones. Part that we have to go in the field. One. Number two, given the nature of your study, given the limitations of visiting the specific place, giving the limitations of other technicalities and all that, we go for, like somebody was asking regarding the artificial intelligence and all that. We have to go for online this. But when we are going for online, we must have the knowledge of our respondents, because we can't go for the surveys where we have section of society that is illiterate. We can't go for online surveys as only one option, that is telephonic survey we can do, and that has huge limitations. And these type of surveys are only where you have a section of the society or your respondents are literate. But the problem, majority of the problem is social economic problems. These are associated with those who are away from the process of growth and development for which we are supposed to work. And those people are totally irrelevant with online surveys. One. Number two, sensitizing the respondents with regard to online responses. That is, I think, not the job of individual. That is huge, I can say, a project. And part it maybe some artificial intelligence or government may take some initiatives to make individuals or the respondents or society in general techno-oriented, but that is not going to, in these situations, that is not going to work. Better is to go for offline. If you have no option, then go for online. But having control on the uncontrolled variable is not possible, because those are uncontrolled. Either even those who are literate, having the knowledge of how to deal with online responses and all that, again, they are uncontrolled. Even those respondents which are with people face to face, again, those are uncontrolled. If you are going for survey, somebody is asking, somebody is responding that I am not going to respond for this. What I am getting from this? Why you are getting money from this? You can't compel somebody that you don't have that much time. You can't compel somebody that you have to respond it. We have the limitations that we have trade-offs. Only thing, we have to go for second best, and second best is the alternatives available with VP.
Yes, basically, I was putting this question because of in these Lok Sabha elections, many of the pollster were asking this kind of
Yes.
questions, like in telephonically they were asking. But I think sometimes they uh, they they do this very in an appropriate way, but many times they
And
failed.
that is why what happened with these exit polls.
Yes,
That is one application. What is happening with these online surveys and all that? The result is in front of we people. How exit polls have befooled people and what was the ground reality.
yes.
That is why these have the limitations, and if we have no option, then we go for that. Otherwise, the best option is to go in the field and come up with the information. I hope Dr. Jaskar and I may have done justice.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Dr. Naveed, there is one more query from the participant Azharuddin.
Azaruddin, yeah, I got. Generally, we have observed that. That is what I am again and again repeating, that how we can, in the last but one slide, that we have the limitation with this. And that is why, given these limitations, we must keep in mind that given these limitations, that we don't know, is this information, how can we rely, is this information okay or not? That is why we have level of confidence, what we call p-value, chance of doing the wrong. And that very 5% or 10%, whatever your probability value is, you put taking these factors into consideration. And like rely on the information. Let us say you have 100 respondents, and out of 100, 5 respondents are those whose responses are not in accordance with what you are basically asking. 5% of the respondents are those who are not responding in a way that you are in line, you're in line with your objectives. That is why for that we have level of significance and level of significance categories, that very problem, because we don't have any other option to go. Yes, we have then options like participatory research approach, ethnographic research. That is different debate. There must be one talk. I don't know, is there any this presentation on participatory research approach, ethnographic research approach? Yes, that is one option where you can participate with those very, but again, that is not possible for each and every kind of study. You are working on some of the industrial or in the agriculture field, you can't go there for 1 year continuously and sit with them, do the same job what they are doing. There are the limitations with each and every. Yes, we have options, we have alternatives, and ultimately, as a researcher, you have to decide which one is best among the given options. You go with that very option and come up with the information. We have the limitations. There is nothing to say with regard that all these options are the options we have. These are limitation free. For that, simply you have level of significance, p-value.
Thank you so much, sir. I guess there are no other questions, and it is time to conclude. So it is my great pleasure to address you as we conclude today's enlightening workshop on hands-on primary survey data collection and questionnaire preparation. So first and foremost, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed resource person, Dr. Naveed Ahmad Lone. So your invaluable insights and depth of knowledge have truly illuminated the complexities and nuances of this primary survey data collection and effective questionnaire preparation. And as we move forward, the knowledge we have gained today will undoubtedly enhance our research methodologies and improve the quality of data that we are collecting. And your contributions have not only broadened our horizons, but also inspired us to pursue excellence in our survey endeavors. And on behalf of everyone here, I would like to thank you once again for dedicating your time and expertise to this workshop. Your efforts have made a significant impact, and we are deeply grateful for the valuable skills and insights we are taking away with us. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, both Dr. Naveed Ahmad Lone for your insightful session, and also thanks to Dr. Fatima for coordinating the session smoothly. So before this, now we are starting our second session for today, and Dr.